this lecture, we are going to learn about multiple if selection statement. In the previous lecture, we treated double if selection statement. Now, in this lecture, we are going to see how to make use of multiple if selection control structure, or we call it a multiple if selection statement. All right. So, then to learn this multiple if control structure, we are going to implement it using a program. Okay, so we are going to create a program to illustrate the usage of this multiple if selection statement. So we have an algorithm, and our aim is to use multiple if statements to create a program that will decide a student grade based on his, her, or score. All right, so the first thing that we are going to do, we are going to get the score from the user, and then in step number 2, so we are going to use of multiple if selection statement to decide the grade based on the score that has been inputted, and then finally we are going to print out the grade. Right, so I've already created a file and I've called it multiple.c, and then we have a multi-line comment. We have if multiple statement, a program that uses if multiple statement to decide a student score based on the following criteria. So we have A 70 to 100, B 60 to 69, C 50 to 59, and then D 45 to 49, and then E 40 to 44, and then the F grade 0 to 39. So based on this range, based on if the score falls within any of this range, then the grade that is associated with that range will be assigned to the student. So, and then line number 8, I imported the mail library, the standard input output header file, which is a library that contains the functions, the print format function and the scan format function that we are going to use to input, to print out a message and to input a value from the terminal. All right. So, and then I've also declared function main. So let's begin coding. All right. So the first thing that we are going to do, we are going to declare variable. And what variable this program has, the very variable that comes to mind is the score that we are going to accept from the terminal, that we are going to prompt the user to input from the terminal. So I'm going to write a comment. I'm going to write input. Let's say declare a variable. So declare a variable. So we are going to declare a variable or variables. So declare a variable or okay. So for now, I only have one variable in mind, which is the score. So let's say declare a variable. All right, and then I'm going to come here and then I'm going to declare it as float, a floating point, because a student can score 40.44 or 20.69. So this is not an integer value. So let's declare it as float, and float, we know that float has a higher range and scope than an integer, so it can even contain an integer. So we are going to make use of float to declare the score variable. So we are going to say declare score, float score. Okay, and then so we have done with that variables declaration. Now we need to initialize this variable that we have just declared, and we have already known that initialization is giving value to our variable for the first time. So when we are assigning a value to our variable for the first time, we refer to that as variable initialization. So that is what we are going to do just now. So I'm going to say, and we are going to initialize this variable by prompting from input from the user. We get the input, and then we assign that value, that whatsoever value that the user enter from the terminal, we are going to assign that value to our variable score. So I'm going to prompt from input, prompt for the score. So I'm going to prompt for the score from the terminal, and then to do that, I'm going to make use of my print format function. So I'm going to print format, and then I'm going to make use of statement terminator to close the statement, and then within the parentheses, this is I'm going to pass my argument, which is a string, a message that I want to get printed out. So enter the score. Now this will prompt the user to enter the score. Now after the user has entered the score, now I want to get the score and make it available to the program. So let me have 40 comment. I'm going to write get the score. And then now I'm going to make a scanf function, function. and then I'm going to and then we have the format control string for a floating point. This is it, a percentage sign followed by f, telling the scanf function that what I expect it to get from the terminal is a floating point value. And then I'm going to now point to the variable location where I want to score that value that scanf gets from the terminal, and where I want to store that value is under variable score within the memory. So this is just a pointer pointing to that variable score, where a memory segment that has been assigned when we declare this variable. So the moment we declare this variable, a segment within the memory, within the computer memory has been created. So now we are pointing to that location by making use of this ampersand. This is a pointer. This is what we call a pointer in C programming. It is pointing to that location that has been assigned to this variable score that has been assigned, that has been created and named with the name of the variable that we declare here, score. So we want to store that value that scanf is going to get from the terminal. All right. So okay, so let me also put some space here. But it's optional. If you like, you can put a space. If you like, you can leave it. All right. So we have scanf. Now the next thing that I'm going to do now, I'm going to get the right. So we have gotten the input. So let's go back to our algorithm. What we have in the algorithm. So let's take. So we have gotten the score from the user now. Now the next thing we are going to do, we are going to make use of multiple selection to decide the grade. So now what is remaining for us is to now decide the grade. So now use multiple if statement, multiple selection to decide the grade, the grade. So now we are going to make use of multiple selection to decide the grade. So this is we're going to write if, and then we are going to put the condition within a parenthesis. Now the condition is if score, and then I'm going to go back to that my range that has been given from the what we have from the question. We say 70 to 100 is grade A. So I'm going to make use of this lower range. If my score is greater than or equals to this lower range 70, then grade A is going to be assigned to the student. So I'm going to go down and write if score is greater than or equals to the lower range of the first range, which is 70. Then if this statement happens to be true, then okay, this is a statement, this is a block for if. So I'm going to print that the student has scored grade A. So I'm going to just going to write grade A. I'm going to write grade A. So the student has grade A. All right. So we go down again, and then now this is we are using multiple selection statement. So instead of creating another if again, now what we are going to do, we are going to say else if. Now that is how this differs from single and double selection statement. So multiple if, we are going to test several conditions using multiple if selection statement. So we are going to say else if because we still have another condition according to the program that we are creating. So I'll go off again and see the next condition. How my next condition is going to be now if the score is greater than or equals to 60, then the grade is B. So I'll go down again and then write if else if score is greater than or equals to 60. So if that condition happens to be true, then what we are going to have, we are going to print. All right, we are going to print that the student has grade B. All right, so the student has grade B. All right, and then else if score is greater than or equals to, and then let's go off again and then see the next range, 50. So if score is greater than or equals to 50, then what we are going to have is we are going to print format that the student has grade C. All right, so that is how we keep doing till we exhaust all the conditions. So let me simply copy this, and then I'm going to paste it to save time. So I'll copy this, and then I'm going to paste it here. Okay, so let me okay, So if else if score, so let me go off again and see the next condition is 45 to 49. So if else if score is greater than or equals to 45, then we are going to print D, that the grade is D. All right. So go down again, and then I'm going to repaste it. Then now else if score, okay, we have 45 to 49. Now the next condition is 40 to 44. So I'm going to have else if score is greater than or equals to 40, which is the lower range of that range. So if you notice everything, the condition, what I'm testing within the condition is the lower range of all the ranges. Okay, so else if score is greater than or equals to 40, then the grade is going to be E. All right, so the grade is going to be E. Now we have one final condition. Now since we have one final condition, we don't need to test the condition again, because we know that anything other than A, B, C, D, E, then definitely it is going to be grade F. So I'm going to write else, and then I'm going to print format that the grade is F. So the grade is F. Right. So so far I think we have exhausted all the conditions. Now we can go and compile this program and then test it, and then if there's any error, then we come over and fix the error and get the program running. So I'm going to go to the terminal. I'll minimize this. Okay, let me increase the something. Right. So I'm going to navigate to that directory, desktop. Okay, Phoenix, okay, and then we have C lectures. All right, so clear the screen. So we have the multiple.c. So now I'm going to compile it by sudo gcc, which is the name of my compiler, and then what I'm compiling is multiple.c, multiple.c, and then I'm compiling multiple.c, and then I want to output it out as multiple. So I want to output it out as multiple. So I'll just hit enter. I'm going to enter my password. All right, so it has been compiled. So as we can see, if we do ls, we are going to see now it is now in green. Initially, when we can see a new file has been created, and which is in green, meaning that it is an executable file. So now we are going to run it. I'm going to enter. Okay, let me clear the terminal, and then so I'm going to enter sudo, and then I'm going to enter multiple, and then I'm going to hit enter. So enter the score. So let's enter 45. Let's see what we're going to have. Grade D. All right, so let's run the program and enter a new input again and enter a new value. So let's enter 0. What if the student scores 0? Grade F. All right, and then so let's run and enter a new value again. So what if the student score 100? So we can see the grade is A. So so we can see that our program is working perfectly. So that is how we make use of multiple if multiple selection statement. So we have successfully implemented the multiple if selection statement in this lecture.